This moment right here is truly a fascinating moment. A landmark moment, mind you. It sets a tone, passes the vibe check, and shows you only a fraction of what you can end up exploring. This is a specific feeling that many games want to recreate, trying to recreate this true sense of awe and wonder, and it is also one of the reasons why Breath of the Wild is regarded so highly as it is, for just making you feel this sense of admiration for this vast world. Since Breath of the Wild's release, only a handful of games have managed to create this feeling of amazement in me. Final Fantasy VII Remake, Deltarune Chapter 2, Outer Wilds, Elden Ring and Tunic. All, just to name a few, all these had moments where I thought to myself, this is truly amazing. Of course, I'm not saying that all good games need to have this sense of wonder, far from it, but for today's video, I want to talk about this feeling that video games manage to give us, and more specifically, the wonder of the world in video games. I was actually planning to make a Storm experience on Geometry Dash for April Fools, but that will come some other time, as you can clearly see. But yeah, so sit back by the great fairy fountain, fellow Tarnished, and let's talk about the wondrous worlds in gaming. Game worlds: Hyrule in Breath of the Wild, Gaia in Final Fantasy VII, Lordran in Dark Souls. These places are just a few examples of game areas that are iconic for a wide range of reasons, either being so vast to explore or just so hard that you wonder what life choices you took to end up here. But what they do all have in common is that makes them, what do they really have in common that makes them so wondrous for us to explore? Well, really it just comes down to you, but that's not really a good answer, is it? So let me try and sound wise for a moment. Really, these three places do share one thing in common, and that is scope. By that I mean is that these places are truly big, and seeing these places they have to offer just makes you feel so small and itches that explorer inside you. This is something I'll get to later, but first, these big worlds. They all have some big landmark that you can see in the distance, beckoning you to approach it. You've had this feeling before, right? Like you're driving a car or walking someplace and you see something in the distance, a big mountain that is high above the world, or an amusement park that has a spectacular roller coaster. Those are just some real-world examples of attractions that, well, attract you to experience them. And video games want to create this same feeling by making the worlds real? No, not real. They flesh their worlds out to make sure that they stand out and make sure that you want to witness them for yourself. However, there is a balance that needs to be made. You can't just make a game with standout areas, as otherwise this would overwhelm the player and they would have difficulty deciding things. A good example I can give is if you have 3 masterpieces of video games in your backlog: Undertale, The Last of Us, and God of War 2018, just to name a few, and you just finished the game, which do I start with? This creates a dilemma of sorts, and games want to avoid this at all costs. Of course, you can't just make a game's world filled with bland areas, as then what is the point of exploring them? This balance, alongside the story, is what helps create these open worlds for us. Balancing these standout landmarks with a lack of clear direction creates a slower urgency for the player. That helps us stay calm, I guess, and gives us the time to take in the surrounding and life of the game. So that's just a little explanation of how these games balance and create the scope of the world, so let's talk a bit about how these worlds encourage us psychologically to experience them. I mentioned balancing alongside a slower sense of urgency, which is one primary reason as to why these types of worlds are appealing to us. Fortunately, there are 2 recent games that do this quite well, with one being open world and the other being very exploration heavy. Elden Ring and Tunic respectively, which recently released. It's amazing, really go play it, I encourage you. I'm going to make an in-depth video on these 2 games someday, but for now, the urgency that I mentioned. Both these games have a plot that is quite hard to decipher, but have a simple thread that you can follow. In Elden Ring, you must, surprisingly, find the Elden Ring, but the people and characters along the way speak in vague terms that you end up just jotting down notes in a literal notebook to decipher later, or search for a VaDi video. In Tunic, we are also given a simple plot, to save this fox lady, and then we are sent off into a world where we don't even understand the language of the world, literally. Every menu in the game, action, dialogue, is in a language that is foreign, and we have some few English words in the instruction manual to edge us in the right direction. That poses the question, if we don't understand what's going on, how do we stay invested and feel the wonder of the world? That answers itself. You see, the less we know, the more we try to uncover, the better. Curiosity. You know what they say, curiosity killed the cat, but really, we as humans are naturally curious. It's in our nature, and along with another trait, these games really become that much more enjoyable for us. Selfishness. What I'm leading to is that we want to find stuff out for ourselves. Although there are games that have linear paths, the games that make it feel like we are doing this from our own knowledge, well, are better, I guess. Games that lay out our objectives, map markers, quest locations, and so on, these don't make us feel so invested in the world as, well, it's been discovered before, so what's the point in me doing it? So when games that give you barely anything to go off, it gives us, I don't know, a dopamine hit. That we are discovering something, satisfying our curiosity itch and our inner egos. Let's take Tunic for example. I really want to talk about since it's new and everything. The game has an in-game item that is in fact the whole instruction booklet, whose pages must be collected throughout the world. Like I mentioned earlier with language, you have no clue what the book is saying, but there are a few blurbs of English and images that give you a thread to follow. So whenever I pulled out the book to figure out what to do next and managed to figure out where I needed to go, I felt proud. I managed to figure out what was going on with the little information that I was given. Sure, going back to the balance aspect, if the objective is so bizarre that you have to search up a guide, then this whole sense of wonder is gone. But generally speaking, this sense of discovering the wonders of the world is truly amazing. Of course, there are many counter-arguments to this, and I might have trailed off a bit, but that's just the reason why these worlds keep us invested. It just makes it just that much more wondrous. Games want us to make these discoveries on our own, not just how the literal world functions, but also how the inhabitants of these worlds function themselves. To be clear, every new game you pick up, you are a foreigner in a different country. These places have norms, rules, hierarchies, and more that you aren't aware of until you progress and learn about the world. As much as I'm not a big fan of The Witcher 3, the game does a great job of showing you the culture of the world that makes the world feel that much more lived in. As a Witcher, you are a hunter with supernatural abilities. However, as much as a hero you seem to be, you are looked down upon the people. Villagers spit at you when you walk past them, grunt, and make other unwelcoming sounds. This is a great way at showing a divide and contrast within the world, and makes it just more intriguing to explore and talk with actual people that do end up talking to you. And yeah, of course, the culture of the world can be shrouded in mystery, just like the worlds that I mentioned in the previous section regarding exploration. Think about this like anthropology and Dark Souls. I'm going to be a bit honest. I'm in Blighttown right now, which I really absolutely despise, but up to this point I know very little. But this little information that I have found out has helped me understand just a bit more of what is going on here. Solera, the Gold Knight dude, the blacksmith, these small discussions that I've had with those people made me grab onto a few words that they tell me and try to figure out where I have to go and do. I mean, really, the dude at Firelink Shrine literally said, "Go ring 2 bells, I bet you can't do that." Games that have lore or a world that is deep and sophisticated and coherent, that we can learn more of as we play, adds to this feeling of awe that we get from these worlds. I've been going on about how games need to be vague in order to be enjoyed and give us this sense of wonder, but that's not really the point, and leads to a crucial counter-argument in fact. If the games are so vague, non-linear, can't they just end up infuriating and becoming uninteresting? Well, this can be true, and I feel like I've been constantly going back to balance and it returns yet again here. Like I said, if there's too much stuff for the player to do, they can end up feeling overwhelmed and see exploration as a task rather than, curiosity and discovering stuff, and that puts them off. And just like the flip side of this, if the world is too sparse, it just doesn't seem interesting for us to explore. Take the first Borderlands for example. It's a really great game, I enjoyed it a lot, but the area of the arid Badlands that is divided into minor levels and sections, and even though there are some areas that I can easily refer back to and find my way to, the area just looks so samey. The fact that a lot of the stuff looks the same, I just feel like I'm going back to the same places over and over again. Accompanied with the fact that there is massive empty places between the landmarks and you have to use the vehicle to drive around, it's just not so fun to traverse and explore. However, once the game gets going, the gameplay loop is just really fun, and that manages to make up for some of the bland world. Sorry if this might be a hot take, but that's just what I'm trying to say. And this goes into the second wrong approach I mentioned, with there being too little in the world to encourage exploration. But in the end, there is one reason as to why some worlds don't appeal to us, and really that just comes down to you. Yes, you, like I said at the beginning, you and I, your neighbor, the girl at school, the dude at school, all have different tastes in what we enjoy. I might enjoy a good horror game whilst the others despise the fact of even looking at the cover art of a horror game. So yeah, if you think that you end up disliking a game that people raved about for years, it could simply be the fact that you just didn't enjoy that style of game, and you're into something completely different. Taste is subjective, and that is okay. Games aren't meant to appeal to everyone, but rather a specific group that they know will enjoy this type of game. And that is when they try to create these massive game worlds that they can dive into. Of course, some games want to make these worlds as broad as possible, so that many people can dive in and experience it. Breath of the Wild brought in a lot of new Zelda fans, and the same goes for Elden Ring, being a much more accessible place to start in the Soulsborne or From Software type of games. And by making these places a starting point of sorts, well, that means that they want to make sure that these standout jaw-dropping wonder moments pull in as many new players as possible. And if you can make a new player and a veteran player both feel the same sense of wonder, then you truly know that you've made a world that is really worth to marvel at. And with that, we're at the end of the video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that this video was cohesive and that my points actually made sense, because I think they did, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, any critiques, support, and so on is appreciated. Comment your takes down below, and yeah, sorry for a late upload. I was actually meant to upload last week, but I got hit with food poisoning. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working, writing down new scripts and videos. I'm going to keep playing Marvel Spider-Man, which is a banger of a game. Oh, and I also want to get into the Nier series, so I'll have to check those out sometime. But yeah, with that, have a good rest of your day. Hope I didn't take away too much of your time, and Storm out.